Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast, a hybrid structure encompassing health, fitness, self-improvement, and entertainment, where no topic is off limits and all opinions are graciously welcomed.
Let's get on with the show!
And now, here's the host of the show, Mike Sinopoli.
Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast. I am Mike Sinopoli, certified nutrition coach, consultant, counselor, call me whatever you would like. On this episode, we are addressing a topic, one that you may have brushed off as unimportant at some point in your life, or not even know anything about whatsoever. That topic is breathwork. When we talk about breathwork, this is something that we do for ourselves, something that can regulate us. I am far away from an expert on this. So I brought somebody in that is. She is an Ontario, Canada native, and she is a trauma-informed breathwork facilitator. Her name is Lina Cannella. Lina, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I hope I addressed you well there, and your title is accurate, correct? So what we're going to do today, and I've been following you, met you through social media like I do with most of my guests. What we are going to discuss is breathwork in its entirety. Now, what's exciting about this one is that I don't know much about anything about this topic because I have tried to do breath exercises. I have sat in therapy sessions and felt really, really stupid and out of place trying to breathe and dig it down from somewhere deep. So that's what we're going to kind of go from here. So to kind of get started on this, a lot of people have a confusion, and I know I do, between meditation and breathwork. So as we get started here, what do you think? What is the difference to you on meditation and breathwork?
That's a really great question. Thank you. So there is a bit of a difference. Okay. So regular meditation, we find that a lot of people have a hard time just sitting and doing the practice. There's always an aspect of breathing through your meditating. But the beauty about breath work is actually, and the style that I teach, you can actually add in some movement. So if you're anything like me, who first of all doesn't like to stay still, and then when you're silent and having to stay still, it's like impossible. So that's one of the reasons why I got into breath work, is because I knew I needed something, and I would try to meditate. And I'm like, man, I can't do this. Like, this is just isn't for me. But when you start bringing the breath work in and you start having like almost like a purpose, like you're moving that energy, you're inhaling, you're exhaling, it is still very meditative. Like there's different styles. It could be shorter, longer, but having that extra movement just helps a lot more people to be still as well as doing the practice.
Okay. Makes sense. I can see that. And what you said about sitting still. That has been a problem of mine since I can remember. I don't sit still. I fidget all over the place. My mind wanders. My mind seems to move as quickly as my body wants to move as far as sitting still, if not faster. So what I pulled up here from a site, so basically to kind of make it more concise, meditation is about increasing your awareness of how you operate. It asks you to observe your breath without manipulating it. Whereas breath work is a form of active meditation, which uses breathing practices to try and alter your mood or mind state. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah, it definitely sounds accurate. I find too, and I've read a few studies, that you'll actually get more impact from breath work over meditation. And I believe the reason for that is that when you're doing breath work, you are still somewhat, but you're actually moving that energy through your body. So you're getting out of your mind into your body, which is super, super important. Most of us nowadays, we're in our, what we call our structure mind, right? Like it's always go, go, go. So when shit is happening, you're always processing through your mind. But when you can actually just pause and breathe, get out of your mind into your body, you can actually start witnessing your reactions, if that makes sense. You're witnessing your breath, you're witnessing sensations, you're witnessing feelings. There's so much magic in breath work that I think more and more people just really need to try it out, to be honest.
I completely agree with you. I've had some minor successes. I've got glimpses of breathing and feeling my mood change and shift. And believe me, like it's almost like, is this a placebo? Am I just thinking that I'm doing it because it's the case? I don't think so. I really don't, because I don't like to lie to myself. And I do like the difference, I think, between meditation and breath work. I think kind of separate what we have is you have your mind and then you have your gut feelings. You know how you have those two? And I've read some books. Anxiety RX by Dr. Russell Kennedy was one of them that really separated the two. It separated the mind from the gut, from the soul. And I think the breath work thing is exactly kind of what you're talking about, where you're breathing in, you're feeling it, you're changing it, you feel that gut, that actual change. Whereas in meditation, I think it's more of taking thoughts and living and sitting with them and letting them pass. And that's more of a mental sort of exercise than breath work. I think that's kind of what you're getting at too. Is that right? Remember, I'm guessing at all this shit. I know nothing.
No. You're actually very accurate. So this is my opinion. Okay. So this is my opinion. I think a lot of therapy back, I'm going to call it old school, but like years ago, it was a lot of mind work. Okay. It's like talking about it and try to work through it and watch your self-help videos and books. And, and here's the thing, if you don't actually do the work and get into your body and feel the sensations, feel the trauma, feel the emotion, you can't outthink your mind. You can't reprogram your mind without working on your physiology. So breath work not only is helping through like emotional traumas, moving that stuff, but it actually, if you can control your breath, you're actually changing your physiology, which is like where I'm studying a little bit more now. And that's why when you're breathing, you're like, whoa, why do I feel so different? And we'll say you get high on your own supply, meaning you're getting high on your own breath because you're dropping, your nervous system is getting out of sympathetic and going into parasympathetic. So everything seems different. Your perspective is different. That's why it has such a beautiful effect on people's everyday life, to be honest.
I can see that. I can definitely see that, and why it's kind of a growing trend. And I do like what you said, because that's something that in the last couple of years I've sort of realized is that with therapy sessions and such, they focus so much mentally on this. And I've learned like anxiety itself isn't even a mental issue. It's a bodily one. If you think about it, where do you feel anxiety? You feel it down in your gut, your solar plexus, those areas. And then I think that's where breath work comes in and can alleviate those sort of feelings a little bit more than just going there and intellectually and logically speaking to another human being who, don't get me wrong, is professionally trained, and there's benefits to that. But I think it's missing a piece of certain things. And I think that's where this breath work comes in. Now a random question just spouted out to my head. Like, do you know, is there like a certain amount, a recommended amount of time daily to spend doing breath work? Can you literally can you overdose on your own supply? Can that happen? Is there too much breath work?
Okay. So, let me think about this one. So I don't think you can overdose, but you can get very lightheaded. So there is a science behind breath work, right? So there's different types. There's more embodying breath work where it's slow and deep, right? And you're just kind of like moving that energy and you're breathing. It could be in through the nose, out through the mouth, right? Then there's the more like active breath work, right? Where it could be really like active through the mouth. So you have to realize most human beings, we don't breathe properly, right? We are not actually getting enough air into or oxygen into our bodies, right? So when we start to over-oxygenate, you can get lightheaded. Okay. So to kind of answer your question, I don't think you can overdose on it, but you can get to the point where people could get really, really lightheaded. Some people could pass out. You're not supposed to be driving when you're doing breath work because you can get it's almost like you're high. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah, so that's what I would say in that sense. But it's not. So one thing I like to point out to people, it's not the intensity that's going to give you the impact. Okay. You actually just have to figure out what feels good for your body. I have some clients that like the more active type breath work, right? And then I have some clients that want to just be like calm and soothing, right? The most important thing is, as a breathwork facilitator, when I'm working with a client, is I don't want to re-traumatize you. And I can. That's how powerful your breath is. right? Because if I'm getting you to breathe, and if I'm getting you to feel, and if I'm getting you to go deeper, and if I'm getting you to actually get into those traumas, sometimes people can't handle it. And that's where the magic is like, you have to be working with someone that understands these concepts, because I've seen it too often where, you know, they go in and they do these like really, really crazy breathwork sessions. And then all of a sudden people are feeling like overly emotional or refeeling traumas that they've been working so hard to hide. So there is a balance, and you just have to be really, really cautious in that sense, if that answers your question.
It makes sense. So if you had to guess, if you had to just put out there, you know, don't hold her to this, don't hold Lina to this, but if you were to like say, what's a good amount of time? And I know the quality of breath work will matter more than anything, but what's a good amount of time that someone should maybe spend and making this a priority? Because like anything else, like exercise, like your diet, like whatever else it is, therapy sessions, you have to make time for this. You can't just, and you have to be in the right environment for it. So if you got a loud house like I do with kids and dogs and barking and screaming and all kinds of other shit, you got to find a spot to be. So what do you think is a realistic amount of time one could put for accurate breath work?
People can see benefits with 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes a day. And then if you're really lucky and you can maybe spare 30 minutes a week, like one session where you do something a little more meditative and go a little bit deeper, then I would recommend that. But as simple as adding it to your routine, 10 minutes a day. There's so many apps. If you want to follow an app, once you practice it a little more, you might find your own rhythm. 10 minutes a day will make a huge impact, and it will set the intention of your whole day. So I would recommend doing it in the morning, but you can really do it at any time.
Nice. I like that. That's a very realistic amount of time, I think, for to have a great benefit on someone's entire day. And, you know, for me, you know, it's just finding the time and making the time for it, you know, and I think that we just kind of blow this thing off a little bit is not important. And I'm learning that now. And this is why I was so excited to have you on here to hear these types of benefits. So just back to you a little bit. So when did you yourself discover breath work? Like, when was your like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get into this and start it myself, not as far as a facilitator, but as for you. How long you been doing it?
So that's a really great question. It's kind of interesting because I'm going to say, I don't know how many years ago, because time flies differently these days. A few years ago,
it really does. I don't know. I look back at things now. I'm like, oh yeah, last year when that was Mike, that was 3 years ago. I'm like, oh, holy shit.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, I don't even know. I'm glad you feel me on that one.
Just take a guess. What do you think?
Yeah. So I'm going to say, okay, this is where kind of my first peek to understanding breath work. Let's say like 5-6 years ago, I took this course called The Psychology of Eating. Okay. So I took this course, really, really cool course. And one of his main concepts was you need to take 10 breaths before you have a meal. And I was like, what? And he explained getting your nervous system into parasympathetic so that you're calm, you can digest your food and get the benefits of eating, right? And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. 4 or 5 years, maybe 3 years ago, I got into Wim Hof. So ice baths, breath work. I had a friend who was an instructor. So we started doing this really, really regularly. And I was like, wow, this is really, really cool. Right. So one of the interesting things, as we say, like with breath work, there's energetic releases. Every time I would breathe, I would cry. And I'm like, wow, what is this? But things would shift. And it was really interesting too, is like, if anyone has experienced ice baths, and if you haven't, or you have, there's a difference of going into the ice without prepping your body and then going into the ice when you are prepping your body. And the first ice bath I did with my brother, and I didn't breathe. I went in, it was horrible, right? Second ice bath I did, and I had the breath work beforehand, and it really changed the sensation. So that's when things started to kind of come together for me. And I was just exploring more. And then this course came up and it was an opportunity. And I was just like, man, I don't know. And I just pulled the trigger. And it's been like one of the best things I've ever done.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
It's just kind of how these things just sort of just kind of snowball them into themselves. And then I do want to talk about those ice baths later too, because I keep hearing about cold showers and starting your day with that shit. And like some people say that starting your day with a cold shower is just because it sucks, and then you just everything else seems better from there. I don't know if I don't know yet. I haven't really tried it, so I can't really speak on that. But as far as the ice baths go, is that a similar type of concept, or is this a little different with the ice baths that you're doing? Is this just more of a self-challenge type thing, or what is your thoughts on the ice baths?
So first, I'm just going to say any kind of cold exposure is cold exposure, right? So whether you do the shower or the ice bath, you're going to get the same health benefits, mindset benefits, all the same benefits, right? I personally think showers are horrible. Like the whole thing of like cold water just spraying on you. I'd rather just get into the tub. I'm just going to land that there. It's a lot easier. Yes, there is a lot of health benefits to it, but there is a lot of growth in doing hard things. Okay. So you're training yourself to not even just get into that bath, but then when you're in that bath, how can you calm your nervous system with your breath? Right. So I'm currently taking a certification in physiology first, right? Which is a course that it's a program for teens, and it's about teaching teens about their physiology and using their breath through stressful situation. Ice baths is one of them. If you can put yourself in a stressful situation purposely and be able to calm your breath, calm your mind, realize how that sensation feels in your body, then when you're in everyday life and something freaking hits you, whether it's a text message, I was gonna say an asshole, but someone, anything, a boss, a wife, like anything that can happen, then you know that sensation. And you said a great thing earlier. You said something about anxiety, right? And I want to touch on that a little bit because I feel that sometimes that word is overused, but it's the same idea. If I know what that sensation of anxiety feels, then when it's happening, like if I have to go write a test or if I have to go do a podcast, like right now, I know how to control that. That is the purpose of ice baths, right? It's a really cool thing too, like being able to sit in ice for like 3 to 4 minutes, but it's also a really great life lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like it. And then I know anxiety is sort of a overused term. I think some people think they have anxiety, but they're really just nervous. And they don't really know what that feeling is. There's different levels of it for sure. I know I've had it before, the real thing. And I can tell when I'm a little anxious or high strung because going back to breath in itself, I feel like my breathing is very short. Like I'm almost like tensed up in my lower body, in my chest and such, that my breath doesn't really get any deeper than just the bottom of my throat or something. And then when you can sit down and take a minute and really breathe deep and get it from the bottom of your stomach, almost, it actually has an alleviating feeling. I'm not saying it's the be all end all cure for your anxiety, but boy, I have felt that help me. So does that sound kind of like breath work coming into play for me a little bit in that sense? I'd say
100%.
Okay, good. I didn't know if it was, again, I'm at the questioning stage of all this stuff. Is this placebo? Am I doing this right? Is this for me? Is this something that I should pursue and continue? I absolutely, as of right now, yes, is that answer. So, and you never know where it leads. So,
100%. Okay. So this is what I say to a lot of people. How you breathe shows me how you do life. Okay. So your breath is one of the most powerful tool as a human that you have. Okay. So it not only that it depending on how you breathe, I'm not going to get all sciencey or anything like that, can help with a lot of health issues that some people have nowadays. But if we're going to talk under the umbrella of anxiety, right? I always say, like, this word has just been thrown around. I'm not saying that people don't get anxiety, but like, is it anxiety? Is it because you haven't slept enough? Is it because you're over caffeinated? Is it because it's just you're maybe excited, especially if you're a younger person and you don't know the difference? So when you can actually pause, and I say this a lot, like you have to be able to pause and examine and like observe your breath, right? If people can't do that simple action of pausing and being like, okay, wait, I don't feel myself. Let's just pause. Let's take a few deep breaths. If you can't do that, how can you examine and observe whether your anger, your boredom, your fear, right? Because your physiology is so important, right? On how you're going to react to a certain circumstance. So yeah, you probably were doing breath work, which is really great that you even noticed that. And it's the best tool that anyone can have in their back pocket for any situation in life.
Yeah, and it's something that can be applied almost on the spot. If you can get yourself mentally in a good place and just step away from wherever you are, you can take yourself out of a shitty situation, maybe one where you might say some shit you'll regret. I know I've done that many times. But so stop and breathe. It's like, it sounds so white noise to people too. Slow down, breathe. It's like, eat your vegetables and go get some exercise. It's like all white noise now, but it's all the right shit. And it keeps on being preached strictly because it fucking works, just like breathing does here. So then you kind of got moves. How far after you started doing breath work regularly, when did you, and what motivated you and moved you to become this coach that you are now and doing what you're doing?
That's a great question. So I knew there was something missing. Okay. So I was doing a lot of women's retreats, and like the girlfriend that I had, who was doing the breath portion of it, I was witnessing that with the Wim Hof system, you breathe, you go in the ice, and, there's a lot of sensations that come up, right? But then there was something missing, right? So then I started to explore, and I found this course, and I realized that holding that space, knowing how to use that breathwork platform in a trauma-informed lens is really important, okay? So when I say trauma, like, there's all different levels. We all have gone through some sort of trauma, right? But there's so many times where the littlest things can just like set you off. Mm-hmm. So personally, what I realized when I was doing more and more breath work, because like I'm Italian, I'm very like very feisty.
Me too. Yeah. I can understand that. At least I think I am. That's what they say I am. But we have to take some sort of ancestral test to make sure. But I am pretty positive I'm 100% Italian or the most. But go on, my feisty friend.
So yeah, and like I'm an Aries, so I'm a fire sign. So like all the time, I've always been so explosive. Since doing breath work, I actually have those tools to be like, okay, wait a minute, I gotta breathe on this. And I'm able to work through things so much easier. And like, life is just so much better, right? Like when you can see things and react not out of an emotional state, but as from your like intuition, from like that feeling inside, right? And when you're working with people, it's all energy too, right? So when I'm breathing someone, I really found that there's so much energy being exchanged, that people just need to be heard, that, learning how to control so much in your life is so important. It's just so important. So yeah, that's why I kind of got into it, was I saw the change within me. And I also realized, which was really kind of cool, and we can get into this because I know you're into fitness, is working through blocks, right? Mm-hmm. When you breathe. Because again, I think I talked about this one day, was like, you could have the desire to change. You could again, read all the self-help books, hire the best coaches. But if you don't do that inner work and actually figure out why you do the things you do, you're never going to create the life or achieve that goal or have that relationship or whatever it is that you desire if you're constantly on repeat. And that's what happens when we're in our structured mind and not in our bodies, which is how we were taught to live, right? With like social media and emails and this and go, go, go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's brutal. I think I agree with you completely. I think that we're on this track. If we allow ourselves to stay on it, it's going to run us into the ground, work us to unhealthiness, and we die young and depleted. And I don't think that people take it seriously enough yet. I know that the younger crowd, people maybe, I don't know, 50 and under, I'd say I have a good grasp of this a little bit more than anybody older. So I do think that there is hope. And I think that a lot of good progress has been made when it comes to this and into mental health as well, because I think it all kind of ties in. And I did like what you said earlier too about like excitement. You might need to have breath work if you're excited about something. I actually never thought about that, because I'll tell you something, because you kind of tied a bunch of stuff together for me. Because I know how you get excited about helping people with the breath work. I'm like that after I get off a phone call with a prospective or current client about their progress, about their excitement to start, or where they've been and how they're going. I get so into it and so excited to help them that like I hang up the phone and I'm like can't breathe. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I guess this is good. This is great. So I just like, maybe that's a time when I need to implement some breath work as well that I never thought about. Usually I think I need to breathe when it's all negative and I need to lift myself from somewhere, but maybe I just need to level myself out with breathing from both ends. You know what I'm saying? From the highs and the lows, and just level this shit out so that I'm not overloading my system.
100%. Because like, there's so many things that can like blow open our nervous system, right? So it is great to be excited about stuff, and you should like love that too, but it's also good to just be more balanced and be like, and then witnessing, right? So that's a good opportunity, which I would give you, is the next time that you get off that phone call and you're all excited and those sensations, I want you to witness those sensations and compare them to the sensations of when you have anxiety and you're feeling stressed out. And I just want you to witness. Don't judge them, but witness. And then come back to me and tell me, like, are they similar? Are they not similar? And then I want you to witness when you're all jacked up on caffeine, if you drink caffeine, right?
Well, I mean, I'm usually on my third cup of coffee when the rest of the family wakes up, and I'm just pacing around and just doing all kinds of crazy shit. But that's probably one where I got to take it easy more. And I tend to also, when I'm in that state of over caffeinating myself, I tend to kind of go a little above and beyond, or too far with what I'm going to do for the day. And I occasionally will like almost, I've gotten better at this, but feeling like a failure at the end of the day because I've set the bar so high because I'm so jacked up on this shit that I'm telling my brain's telling my body to do all this stuff throughout the day, and that my brain believes I can do it. But the time structure, the other responsibilities, and my overall energy level does not cooperate. I almost always leave unchecked boxes on my to-do list for this. And I sometimes give myself anxiety over it. Maybe I have to stop making checklists.
Well, maybe.
I mean, it might not be good. I've taken breaks from doing that shit, but I have two different ways of thinking about it. It's either like, hey, I feel so fucking productive when I've got these things getting jacked off of the list and I'm just going at it. And then I feel like shit sometimes if I don't get to it all. I've improved upon it. It's not necessarily this, the highs and the lows that I feel on them. None of it's really that necessary. Even if I've checked off a lot of things, the sense of satisfaction, fulfillment that I feel is not real. And I think the anxiety and feelings of failure that I have if I fall behind are also not real. I think it's just my brain telling me different things. Societal norms playing its role in the ingrained parts of my body where I've taken them in and need to release. So if that makes any sense to you.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense to me, right? And that's, I think, normal for most people nowadays. So those are great opportunities. Like I said, when you can witness all those sensations, because everything's oh my God, sensation in your body.
Tough right? Words, man. Tough words.
Oh my gosh. I am on my fourth cup of tea today, I will admit. So everything's just a sensation. Right now, your mind is going to tell you, is this a bad sensation? Is this a good sensation? Right. So going back to that course that I was telling you about with working with teens, is when you can put yourself in stress, which would simulate like anxiety, right? Through ice bath, through sauna, through working out. Okay. So if anyone trains, you're deliberately putting your body in stress. These are all different sensations that are very similar. Then it's your brain that is telling you, is this good? Is this bad? Oh, this is good. Even though I feel like I'm going to puke because I'm working out, but this is bad because, oh my gosh, I feel like my boss is mad at me or someone's mad at me. So this must be a bad sensation. But is it? Is it really? Or is
Right.
it just your mind playing tricks on you because you're working from an emotional state instead of just stopping, breathing, and asking yourself, okay, is this just me doing this again, like playing these stories in my head? Or is this really what's happening? Because your body will control, like it can be the same situation, but depending on your mood, your perspective on that situation will be different.
Right. And
Does
the
that
first
make
thing
sense?
that makes perfect sense. And the first thing you need to implement what Lina's saying here is self-awareness, because she's able to talk and observe herself from the outside. Is this just me doing that thing again? Like once you can start, you have good self-awareness, because I can do this now and I'm proud of that, is that I can honestly observe myself from the outside, like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. Like it sounds crazy. Like people will say, oh, you're talking to yourself, or you have two people inside of you. You almost need to have two people inside of you. And it is two things. It's your logical brain and it's your gut. The gut's going to tell you one thing. And I think it's also a little bit of bullshit that your gut is always right, because sometimes you can't differentiate a gut feeling versus just unnecessary paranoia. So you have to use your logical brain sometimes to tame the gut, and then other way around. Your gut needs to tell you your brain certain other things. So I think that the two need to work hand in hand as best as possible. And another thing you were saying is putting yourself through stress. I really like how you kind of said that. And I believe strongly that the more advanced we become as a society technologically, the more conveniences that we have. We got Uber, we work from home, we got grocery delivery, we got all kinds of food delivery. We don't need to do shit. I mean, we have the option to be idle all day if we allow ourselves to do so. So putting yourself through stress is actually a fucking privilege at this point, because, it's really just the fact we have to be doing that is amazing. The fact we have to be tracking our food and counting our calories, that is actually like a good thing that we need to be doing, because we have an abundance of food. So similarly with this kind of stuff, we just need to like put ourselves through some hard times, or else we're just going to be weak individuals who can't handle things when the hard shit does come up, because people are going to die. You're going to lose your job. You're going to have a day where some shit doesn't go right. You're going to get a health scare. You're going to lose money at something. It's like, you got to be prepared for those instances, So having something like breathwork, in my opinion, as a side, not even a side, but as a main go-to for all this stuff is huge. And to keep going on this, I do have a section here that I pulled from a website that I want to review with you really quick.
Yep, go for it.
We talked about a lot of it. Already. So, but add in whatever else you'd like as I go through this. These are the benefits of breathwork, the top 10. And I took this from an article called frequencybreathwork.com, and it lists off the top 10 benefits of breathwork. Number 1, reduces stress, anxiety, grief, depression, and anger. I think we've pretty much been talking that completely there. It can increase your energy levels and boost your immune system. Have you heard that about
100%?
That's accurate. Okay, great. It increases, a word we just used, self-awareness, presence, happiness, and joy. I like that. I think that's very true, because once you take that time to just settle down and chill, good to go. Increased, I hate this term, self-love. I really do, but it's a real thing.
I do too.
I know. Self-love is just like, come on. I used it before. I'll use it again. But I mean, to me, increased self-love is just such a generic statement, but hey, probably true. Breathwork improves sleep. I think that's very true, because I feel like if you have trouble sleeping, a lot of times some shit's on your mind, or you got that feeling like you're almost on your bed, but you're like on pins and needles on your bed. And then
and that comes back to your nervous system, right? Because when you're anxious, breathwork will put you in a less anxious state, which will help you fall asleep. Right, exactly. It's not rocket science, Yeah.
Having to fall asleep anxious is very hard, very difficult. Release trauma and fear stuck in the body. I think you went over 100%. That. Absolutely. Help reduce pain. That's one we didn't really talk about. I'm guessing physical pain.
So let's link this one back to when I was saying about the ice baths, going into the ice bath without breathing and then with breathing, right? So what ends up happening is when you breathe, right? Again, I'm just going to keep saying this, you're putting your nervous system in that parasympathetic state, right? So it almost is like you're calm, you're more less reactive, you feel things differently. Okay. So when you're in that more calm state, you're more body aware, even though there is that sensation, whether it's the ice bath or like, let's say when women give birth, right? They always tell you to breathe. I understand this now. I wish I knew that back then when I was having babies. I didn't. I was like, what do you mean you want me to breathe? But it kind of just, and the way I'm going to explain it is it kind of numbs all your sensations a little bit because you're just high on your own supply. You're chill. You're feeling calm. You're not over anxious. You're just like, okay, I'm here in the moment. So yes, I would say it does help with the pain 100%.
Do you think, and I've said this before to some friends, do you think that people who smoke cigarettes or took upon smoking were accidentally doing some sort of breath work and they credited it to cigarette? Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm serious. Like, think about this. Like, I smoke because it eases my anxiety, or I smoke because it relaxes me. Maybe the only time you're taking deep breaths is when you're sucking down nicotine, lady. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I love that. I might actually explore that theory a little bit more.
Now, don't go smoking cigarettes based on that comment, but I'm just thinking, like, you know, you've heard that before. Like, oh, it's a good cigarette. Nothing relaxes me more than a smoke. And I said, maybe these people are just accidentally doing some breath work.
Or think about this one. What do people usually do when they have a smoke? They stop. They chill. Yeah. They breathe. Yes. And they're just in the moment.
They stop. They go out. They go outside.
So in a society where we're like, oh, we got to go. I got to get this to-do list. Oh my gosh, I have 10 minutes before I pick up the kids, blah, 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 blah. And now when you stop, things are more relaxing when you can just freaking pause.
Exactly.
Like, people just need to pause.
And, you know, it's total, and nobody realizes that it's total bullshit. I used to smoke. I'll tell you that. Yeah, and then I quit a long time ago, but I was at work. I worked in an office, you know, and I'd quit smoking. But I would, two or three of my coworkers, we would go out for cigarettes anyways, but I still wanted to go out and take the break. And I would get shit on. Like, hey, Mike, you don't smoke anymore. You can't go out for a smoke break. Wait a minute. I'm going out there to take a minute. Like, you mean to tell me that I have to put a poisonous toxin into my body in order to take a fucking break from your shitty work? Like, so like, so jacked ridiculous. Up, so ridiculous. And if you made a good point, like literally it's all the steps to go outside and have a cigarette. It's all the steps of breath work. You remove yourself from an area. Usually you go outside. So you go out into nature, you breathe fresh air first. You're typically maybe by yourself. And you're breathing. And now the cigarette, this is great. So now do the whole thing without the cigarette. You save a bunch of money and you'll save your lungs.
Yeah.
So
you'll improve your health and your mindset and everything.
Yeah. If you're a smoker, give that a shot. Maybe you don't even need to keep spending $10 a pack of Pall Malls or whatever you're doing. Okay. Just breathe. All right. Number 8, release toxins from the body. So is that's something as well? We release toxins as we breathe out.
Yeah.
Number 9, improves digestion.
I told you about that course, right? Right. They recommend that you take 10 deep breaths before you eat, right? And it makes sense to me because when your nervous system is in sympathetic state, right? It's fight or flight. Thank you.
Gotcha. No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Got my back here. I love you. What does your body do? Like, obviously right now we're not in major danger, but like if we went back centuries ago, when you're like being chased by a bear, right? Your digestion system just stops. It literally just stops because you're like, I got to get out of here. So if you actually take a couple breaths before you have a meal, you're going to actually absorb more of the nutrients in your food. So there's a little tip.
So there you go. Yeah. I learned something today. That's for sure. I also heard you're supposed to chew your food 27 times to get the nutrients out of it. I think that's a bunch of bullshit.
I don't know if I can do that.
I'm like 23 chews behind the right amount of nutrients the way I eat. It's more like a duck at this point. But anyways, number 10, and you can help me with this one because I don't know if this is true. Explore altered states of consciousness consciously. So it's like getting high without getting high, maybe. Is that what that means?
Yeah. Okay. So these are known as more of like a breath journey. Okay. So this might be another podcast, like when you're getting into the spiritual world and you're really kind of exploring with like different frequencies and a higher state of consciousness. Breath work is very, very powerful. Like I said, when you do those meditative types of breaths and it's a little more activating, you can start tapping into different states of consciousness 100%.
Interesting.
I'll just leave it at that.
That's all right. And hey, that could be
Yeah.
part two of our podcast here. We can do just a series of breath work because it's probably that important. So anyways, that's the 10 from that site. I think that's a solid 10. Would you agree, Lina? That was pretty good.
I think those are perfect.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So that's some good stuff there. So then I wanted to just jump in. So if anyone listening here hasn't done this or has tried it, or somebody even like me who seems to not have great success with it, maybe due to a racing mind or maybe a little bit of doubt, what do you see other struggles possibly? Like when you start up with a client or have worked with anybody or even yourself, what are some struggles that you see for people of getting breath work down? What is some of the top obstacles that they're going to maybe have to overcome? You got any off the top of your head?
Yeah, I do actually. I would say the main struggle is actually just doing the work. Just doing the work. So one of the good things about working with someone, so like when someone books an appointment with me, you're kind of like committed to show up, to be still, and to actually do the practice and breathe.
So accountability,
right?
accountability is a part of it here.
Yeah, it's huge. And that's what sometimes people just need. They need that accountability. It's the same if you're going to the gym. You can go to the gym and like kind of work out, go on your phone, do whatever, or you can go to the gym with a trainer, right? And you're kind of like, okay, I'm committed. I got to show up. He's going to push me or she's going to push me, right? So the same with breath work. So it's about finding the time, being still, doing the work. So working with someone or booking sessions really helps for you to just commit to that time and then do that inner work.
I think that's great. And you could take a breathwork coach in the same realm as a trainer or what I do, nutrition coaching as well. And you know what? The goal is you end up not needing the trainer. You don't need the coach. At some point you become, like you'd said in the beginning, you become self-sufficient of this stuff. And this becomes part of who you are. And you end up showing up for yourself. That's actually what the goal is here for eating right, for training and for breathing. You need to end up showing up for yourself. There's no shame. And it's actually a good idea to take on a coach for all those things, in my opinion.
100%.
So very interesting. So when you do have like a call with somebody initially, like what do you kind of discuss? Do you have a discovery call with them? I know you kind of promote, the initial point of contact with you is a phone call, and a lot of people use the term, and I like to use it too, discovery call. We use that because we kind of take away the whole sales side of these things and such, and just sort of talk about you and what's going to work for you. Is that sort of how your discovery calls go with potential clients?
Yeah, 100%. Because sometimes like communication can get lost in texts. Like, do you know what I mean? When you're going back and forth. And I feel for me, energy is everything, right? So you jump on a call with me, you're going to know if I'm your vibe, right? Because not everyone's for everyone.
Right.
And then I get to feel your vibe out. And I really do. I'm going to be honest. I really listen to your words, right? Because what do you really want? Because sometimes what you want or what that trigger is or what you're trying to achieve is not really what it is. So on that discovery call, you get to meet me, you get to ask me any questions, if you have any like fear about anything, and then we get to figure out, what do you want to use breath work for? Is it for like athletic purposes? You want to learn some techniques there? Is it for like just learning more about breath? Is it for working through a trauma or something that you're stuck on? Or is it for which is really huge right now that I'm using breath for, is helping people through their blocks, right? They want to achieve a goal. They don't know how to achieve it because they're constantly repeating this pattern, right? So breathing. So what I love to say to people is breathing makes you get real as fuck with yourself. Okay. Because when you stop and you actually start to feel, and then things will start to come up, things in your subconscious that you're like, what? Is that really why I do what I do? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then you're like, oh my God, I'm crying. Why am I crying? Oh my gosh, it was this that's triggering me. So sometimes it's not the trigger or like, you're not good enough. You're not dedicated enough. You're not motivated. No. It's none of that. It's the fact that you have this like protection mechanism in your body that's not letting you show up the way you want, because it's going to expect you to be a different version of yourself. Right. And then you're like, oh gosh, I got to do that. Right. And the work sometimes is just healing whatever that trauma or feeling or whatever it is in your body. And
Right.
it's not always fun.
Right. And that's the part of the coach too. No, it's
Yeah.
not. You got to find out what maybe the thing you think is up with you is not, and the coach will find that. We'll see that. And did you learn a lot of that just through? Obviously, you do learn it through experience for your own self and working with people. But there's a certification for breathwork these days, right? Is that correct? And have you completed one?
Yeah. So I did my training with Pause Breathwork. So it was a 6-month course. I had to do like 60 hours of practicum. So I breathed 60 hours of people for free. So, and it was some of the best certification I could have done because I got a lot of practice, right? And you get to understand people, different traumas, how to work through different things, energy, techniques, everything. So yeah, there is a certification to it. And then a lot of the other stuff, then I'm tapping into a little more about breath and physiology because I enjoy, obviously, fitness and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of it, like the blocks, that is through my own experience using breath work as a tool to literally achieve my goals right now.
Pretty
and
cool.
It's changed my life. Yeah.
Well, it sounds as if that certification is valuable because I've taken some. That's good. That didn't really seem to give me any sort of tools to move forward with. The nutrition one I did, and then the one I'm in currently for personal training. I won't talk too much about that just because it's not relevant here, but it kind of gives you some stuff that doesn't seem too relevant to what you're going to be doing every day. What I like about the breathwork thing is that it's something you can do every day, and that it's something that there's a lot to learn on it, and you can't. And anything that you do with people is important to just to have as much as you can under your belt to see and read them. And I think that's great that you are doing that. So,
yeah,
if we would like, I have a spot here saved for you. Message to the public, whatever you want to say. I mean, I've covered a lot here. We can keep going with anything else you want to say and keep going with, but like, to anybody out there that's listening, whether they might be a follower or listener of mine, a random person, somebody, a follower or listener of yours, who's contemplating taking on a coach for breathwork or just kind of making it part of their lives, what do you got to say to those people? And other than that, we haven't really covered, if we've covered it all and we've sold these folks, not that this is a sales podcast, but I'm just saying, is there anything else you would add as far as why to take on a coach or just implement breathwork yourself to get started? Anything in addition to all that stuff we kind of rattled off?
Wow, that's a good question. So we talked about a lot of stuff. I would definitely recommend everyone to try it at least once. Okay. So I would definitely recommend to do a discovery call if you're going to pick a coach or a facilitator, whoever it is, to make sure that your energy lines up. Okay. So it's really, really important when you're going to be doing breath work and that person's going to be holding that space for you, that you feel comfortable, because you want to show up. You want to be able to be yourself and be able just to let the breath literally guide you. Okay. So there is a physiology aspect to it. There is a spiritual aspect to it. There is an energy aspect to it. That's why I recommend everyone to try it once. It will change your life. And you might get addicted, and then start incorporating it daily. So my main goal for everyone is, do a session with me, but I want to give you those tools because I want to know that you're doing it daily and you're seeing the changes, and then just come get a top up,
There you go. Right.
That's the best thing.
Sounds like a very healthy addiction to take on. And like Lina here is saying, like when you select a breathwork coach, a nutrition coach, a personal trainer, kind of go into the same mindset you would with a cognitive behavioral therapist, because it's all very similar. It's all jiving with the right person. It's all picking that person. And you know what? You might be fine with some and not with others. It doesn't necessarily mean that somebody's a bad coach or trainer or whatever it is. It's just different like mindsets and spirits and such and souls. They have to line up. They have to be the right way. And that might just be having to find something, and try it once, like she said, but also don't give up if the one time it didn't happen, because I'm still doing this myself, and it's been many tries meditation wise. I'm a unstable human being physically. I'm very clunky when I move, so I want to try yoga, but I'm terrified to do it because of how just non-flexible I am. But I think that's the reason to go and do yoga. Not to make this a yoga thing, but I'm just kind of relating something. It might be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I let off in the beginning of this podcast. I was in a therapy session, and the therapist had me doing some really deep breathing, like strangely deep, puffing my cheeks up and all this stuff. I was like, holy shit, this is very uncomfortable. But you know what? Sometimes that discomfort is exactly what you need to make the change that you're looking for. And that's actually that feeling of resistance. That is the change happening that you're looking for. That's really what it is. And I think that's something Lina could help you out with that. And whoever else you got to explore yourselves, So Lina, I wanted to put out there the contact info for you. What I have is your Instagram. And that's Lina, Lina Cannella, Cannella. That's on Instagram. That's Lina.Cannella. So you have any other contacts you want to put out there for yourself?
Nope, that's good.
That's the best spot. Okay.
Yeah, that's the best spot for people to find me. You kind of if you go to my page, you'll kind of get a vibe about what kind of person I am. Like I said, I like to just keep things real as possible. And I like it with my clients, how I instruct them and work with them in the same sense. And then my link tree's there. You can kind of look at some of my services. But that's the best
I've explored it. She's got a good amount of information, a little extra there. If you go on our page, click the Linktree link in the bio section, you can see more about her and how to schedule that discovery call and such. So, all right. Well, I think this was a good conversation, and I want to thank you for being here. It's in your time, and I know now I have even more to go off of for this breathwork stuff, and eventually probably will be contacting you to get this thing figured out when it feels right. So because your stuff clearly, and this has been really good. So you got your contact info for Lina there. If you missed it, I'll have it in the show notes. You can also contact me. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at MFS Wellness. You can shoot me an old school email, mike@mfswellness.com. So for Lina, I'm Mike. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you in the next episode.